may take a few minutes. There we
Great.
go. We're live. I'm live here Friday morning instead of Saturday with Dr. Nick Thompson, who's a colleague of mine from the UK. And we think pretty much along the same lines. And he just joined Substack. So I'm really happy to not be the only one over here anymore.
Josie, it's great to see you. So great to connect. And yeah, I've been posting on Substack for maybe 2 weeks, and the response from people has been just astounding. People are really wanting an honest veterinary voice. Maybe somebody with some experience. You see, I have grey hairs. Yeah,
I
and
have gray hairs
and I
there
have
too.
I have glasses, and I think they want to just hear from somebody who's been around the block a time of two, who can reflect from the voice of experience. And because we do alternative medicine, we can bring in the best of alternative medicine and experience, and also conventional medicine. Yeah, so we can speak with authority about prednisolone, about any of the drugs that we commonly use, antibiotics and antibiotic resistance, the use of of any drugs for chronic disease, for example, because conventional medicine is very good at acute medicine. They're good at stopping you dying, but they're not very good at making at helping you live a really great life. I think that would be a fair assessment.
Yeah, it would, Nick. And one thing I find too with us like
Mm.
older veterinarians, I think we're a last generation that actually we were educated differently than I see a lot of the young veterinarians these days, where
Oh,
we were
that's interesting.
taught yeah, we were taught physiology and anatomy and pathophysiology and biochemistry. So when we talk about a drug like prednisone, I don't know about you, but in my mind, I start going through how is that interacting with receptors in the body, and what is that doing to the hypothalamus pituitary axis, and
Yeah.
it's taking down inflammation and this and that. But I
Yeah.
find a lot of younger vets don't have that background, and they're
Mm.
just kind of saying, "Oh," but they're looking at the adverse effects and warnings and this and that, but they're not going deeper into and having the clinical experience on top of it. We've seen dogs
Mm.
on different medications and seen the side effects and how they can help, how they when we get into trouble when they're not helping anymore as well.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. I think it was Dr. Sackett who in the 70s came up with the idea of evidence-based medicine. He said, and he was talking about medical school, but I think it's exactly the same for vet school. He said, quote, and he's a pretty well respected doctor, a conventional doctor, but he
Yeah.
said 50% of what you learn at college is going to be either irrelevant or out of date within 5 years of your graduation. It's just you don't know which half.
That's the key right there.
Isn't it?
You
Yeah, but
don't
that
know
is
which half.
it's
Yeah.
absolutely because medicine moves on. It is technology based, and it's based on technology within pharmaceutical. It's even within alternative medicine. Then
But if it's
you know, yeah, it's what we were taught. What I learned about raw food 25 years ago is now has evolved
yeah.
right now. So I think that's really exciting. We humans are learning something that's been going on for like 40 million years.
That exactly. We're like learning more about the biological
Yeah,
organism and all the interactions taking place within these like
yeah,
biological organisms we walk around in and our pets,
yeah.
their lives with as well. So
Yeah.
what fascinates me being I'm really diving into the classics of traditional Chinese veterinary medicine. And these were the books written way early. I mean, we're talking, 1,000 years BC.
Okay.
And they talked about when they first developed the concepts of yin and yang and the five elements process. And they talked about things back then that we're just figuring out in terms of like quantum biology now,
Yeah. Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
really fascinating. But
Yeah, we're just catching up, really. There was an amazing, I saw an incredible lecture maybe 15, 20 years ago by a traditional Chinese medicine practitioner, Deke Kendall,
Mhm.
from the USA. Did you ever come across
I
him?
haven't. No, I haven't.
He was really very forward thinking, and he said, if you go back, if you read the ancient texts, they don't talk about meridians, they talk about channels, because a
Channels, yeah.
channel is something that energy flows along. And he was talking about acupuncture points that you can actually there is a physiological difference between an acupuncture point. It can look different histologically under a microscope than a regular, to do with the nerve supply and blood supply and what have you. So I wonder if he's still going, but he was a
No.
very
I
really
know that
inspiring. Mm,
there's a there's a Korean acupuncturist here in the States that's
mm.
doing micro dissection of acupuncture points.
Wow, wow.
So under the microscope, and he's finding out
Mm.
like amazing, crazy stuff where
Wow.
where the nervous system and the endocrine system and everything is coming together at these specific
Yeah.
points.
Yeah.
So, and
Yeah.
there's receptors in there and all kinds of stuff going on that we have no idea, medicine
But
doesn't.
and yet they did
They
2,000
did.
years ago. Yeah, they might have called it in the same way, and they didn't have microscopes. Well, maybe they did, but they didn't have the kind of technology that we have today with electron microscopes and what have you. But I think they were much more in touch
They were.
with themselves and their patients and nature. And so we think we're very, very clever in our society. We think that because we've got a lot of technology and all these things, that we know more about the world and about life and about our dogs and our cats than we ever have ever in history. And I'm not sure whether that's the case. I
Yeah.
think we know a lot about what we know about, but I think other races throughout ancient history, they had a different take on life and nutrition and energy. And I think we are light years away from some of the real revelations that those ancient peoples had. I really do.
Yeah, definitely. So so do you wanna talk about should we go to the to our topic of bones?
Yeah. Well, we could
I
talk all afternoon about the philosophy of
I
medicine, I'm
know
sure.
we could. It's
But yeah, jump in. Do you want to ask
you
questions, or how do you want to
Well,
play things?
one thing that I see and what I've
Mm,
observed with my own dogs and I've observed with patients is that dogs are such oral creatures. Like
yeah,
they need something in their mouths to chew on, and I think it does so much more. I think it does so much more for them emotionally and for
right,
their psychospiritual exercise for them to just sit and gnaw on a bone,
yeah,
releasing endorphins and self-soothing.
yeah,
And what I see now, especially since the big bad C word of COVID, but all
yeah,
of these dogs being so like anxiety is a blanket term that people are using as this major problem in dogs. And we're
yeah,
seeing dogs that are so anxious, they're now becoming aggressive.
yeah,
And there's this whole thing of like, well, they're not aggressive, they're reactive. But
yeah,
so and I think a lot of that goes back to, well, the food, and they're on these high carb diets where they're not getting any nutrition. And then bones have become a real big no-no. Like over here
yeah,
in the States, people are scared to death to allow their dog to sit and chew on something That's
that they've been chewing on for 40 million years.
that they evolved to chew on, right? They'd rather give them a piece of plastic or
I know,
rubber
I know.
and let them chew on that
Yeah,
than, so
yeah. I think it shows how far we've drifted away from that evolutionary model for ourselves, for our children, for our families, but very much for our pets.
yeah,
We are just a million miles from where we need to be, and I think nutrition and bones as a subset of nutrition, it's a really good example, that we are scared of feeding bones, that we've been educated that bones are
mhm,
dangerous, and there are dogs who go through their whole life and they've never chewed on a
never.
bone. Can you
Yeah,
imagine that? It's
yeah.
like,
Oh,
I try to think
I've met them.
yeah, I know,
They feel
it's criminal, isn't it?
and
You
they
know?
don't even I know dogs I had this conversation last night with my roommate. I've seen dogs, it's like they don't know how to chew on a bone,
Yeah.
like, they don't know what to do with it, and it's really, really sad. So,
Yeah.
yeah. So I know you have a course out there on bones, but that we
Yeah.
could maybe give people some basic guidelines of how to do it
Sure.
safely, because
Yeah.
there's a you can do it very safely, you
Yeah.
know? That's why I put up a picture of my a golden doodle I inherited a couple years ago, who's eating, like, the leg of a goat,
Okay.
a goat trotter,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
he grew up this dog he's a golden doodle, which are really popular right now in the States,
Yeah.
but as a puppy, he landed himself in the woods of Western Kentucky.
Yeah.
And, they out there, they would they have a bowl of water out by the back door, and he got fed whatever he got fed, and what he would do during the daytime is they would just open the door, and he would take off running through the woods. So he would
Yeah.
join up with about 3 or 4 other dogs, and they would go running through the woods having a good old time all day. Well, that's deer hunting country, and a lot of people go up there and poach deers, and they dress the deer out in the woods and
Oh,
leave
wow.
behind the guts and the feet and the legs and the skin and just take the muscle meat that they wanna
Yeah.
eat. So
Yeah.
these dogs were having a fantastic time.
Wow.
And he would go out and find my roommate went up there, his parents had the dog, and he
Yeah.
would go up there and he was staying in a tent on their property, and Buddy would show up with this, like, deer leg that had been laying out there for God knows how many days, fermenting in the soil,
Yeah.
and sitting there chewing on it all day long. So, the story of him, though, he has guts of steel. Nick.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
dog can eat anything. He ate, like, 2
Yeah.
pieces of nylon collar,
Yeah.
never had diarrhea. Like, I was searching for the extra pieces. I found most of the collar he chewed up, and then 6 days later, he just vomited up the 2 pieces of nylon collar in, like, a mucus ball. But he has not had a day of diarrhea in the past 2 years that I've had him.
Yeah, because he's been eating deer gut, which is full of probiotic
Yeah,
bacteria and fermented food, and he would be eating it off the floor. So there's going to be
off the
a
ground, yeah,
smattering of soil as a probiotic as well as the
yeah.
gut contents, and that he's going to be eating. All of that, and there's going to be minerals within that soil as well,
And it's
and
not fresh. It's been
yeah.
it could be sitting there for a few days, for
Yeah.
days.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And so, yeah, I mean, that's what we've got to remember is this is where dogs have come from for many, many millions of years.
yeah.
They've been doing it themselves and surviving as a species. And they've been, you know, living long enough to reproduce and to produce only health, only the healthiest offspring come through. And I think
Survive.
nutrition is really a big part of that, but also bones. Because if you're a wolf and
Yes,
you've got lousy teeth when you're 2 years old or 3 years old, your reproductive potential is really compromised. So,
'cause you can't
mother,
hunt.
yeah,
You
that's
can't
right.
feed yourself.
That's
Yeah,
exactly right. So
yeah.
Mother Nature is really wise with this stuff. And she says, I know. let me just, this is Mother Nature thinking. She thinks, how can I keep this beautiful teeth or dingo or jackal or,
Mhm.
um, whatever, can
Coyote.
it, yeah, a dog-like creature. How can I keep their teeth really clean? I know. Let's try toothbrushes. Oh no, that's not going to work because they can't hold them. Okay, this is Mother Nature. She's thinking to herself, and then she says, "I know, floss. I haven't got any floss, but I've got a. No, that's not very good because we haven't got prehensile thumbs. So flossing the dog's teeth. Let me think. I know." Those things that goats and deer and rabbits and cattle run around on, they'd be really, really good to chew. But also the leather of the hide would be really good to chew to get out into the canines here. And so she thought, I know, I'm going to put dogs and bones and hide and tough, gristly material. I'm going to put those together in order to do many things because okay, bones are nutritious. So when you're hungry, you can eat bones. Bones are if you're really full and you're really happy and everything's fine and you've got a bone from a carcass that you took down a couple of days ago, you can just chew on it because it's very relaxing thing to do. But also, bones will provide fiber and they will provide chondroitin, glucosamine, and all these hyaluronic acid, all these elements. Which how do you feed joints? The
Yeah.
answer is to feed. You feed joints. To feed
With the
joints.
joint.
Yeah. And so she did this, and she thought, I know, on the way, I'm going to make it so that these wolves and dingoes, they have to crunch through here with the molars. I'm telling you this stuff you already know. I'm just telling it
Yeah.
so that
No,
everybody
it's great.
follows the story with it. They crunch through with the molars, which are very good at chopping, terrible at grinding. We do a bit of grinding. Horses do a lot of grinding. Cattle do a lot of grinding, but
Mhm.
dogs and cats, they just slice, eat. So Mother Nature said, right, I'm gonna use those molars for slicing through smaller bones, and I'm going to use primarily the premolars. They're kind of between your molars here and your front teeth here. I'm saying you, but I mean your dog because you and your dog is pretty much the same thing. Okay, so it's the premolars there. They're the ones who do all the work because they're far enough back that you get good leverage, or you guys would see leverage. You get good leverage down onto the bone, and yet you've still got quite. They're quite sharp as well. You don't tend to use these incisors. Dogs have those really cute, when they're young, they have cute incisors. Those are for picking periosteum and skin off bones and getting rid of fleas on your neighbor
I
and
call it's
things
like little typewriter teeth. Yeah. Yeah.
like this. They're like combs, aren't they? Yeah. And
Exactly.
they're forgetting tiny little bits of
Yeah.
meat and bone and things. They're just kind of for fine, delicate work. And those are used within the bone chewing mouth. Yeah. So if you're feeding a good range of bony and chew material, you're going to be using the molars, the premolars, the canines. Those are mainly for bringing down your prey. Okay. But that, I guess, is somehow part of the bone eating process because if you can't catch it, you can't eat it. So they're pretty useful, and so that is part of that whole process. So uh, that's a very long way of saying that bones have been an essential part of the dog's uh, um, nutrition. The whole formula involves protein and fat and carb and vitamins and
Mhm.
minerals and things, but bone, which is a construct of all of those things, is also very, very useful for fiber and for teeth cleaning and what have you. So there you go. That's a very long answer to a very short
Right.
question.
Oh, that's fantastic. Because it is, like, the whole shape of their mouths, now we've
Yeah.
bred these little short-nosed dogs, which is a whole 'nother story, but, the whole shape of their mouth is made for this chewing,
Yeah.
and I've
Yeah.
I've seen dogs. I had a shep This was long ago in my career, and,
Yeah.
uh, shepherd who is starting developing tartar on his teeth, and I recommended her getting some bones to chew on, and that dog, I like, 6 months later, I went and saw that dog, and the dog's teeth were just pearly white, and it was so
Yeah.
awesome, just to see that.
Yeah. When really quite early in my career, I went up to there's a very famous agricultural college called Cirencester. I'm based near Bath in England. So if you're ever over, Bath is absolutely beautiful. And
Oh,
you must come
I
and
will.
see it. Yeah, near Bath. But very close by is the Cirencester Agricultural College. I think it's called Cirencester Agricultural University or something now, but it's an agricultural. Yeah, it's where they teach farmers to be good farmers, and and I did a lecture there, and there were all these people. It was for like a hunting, shooting, fishing association in the UK. So they're all there. They were wearing their tweeds and they had big patches here on their shoulders and what have you. A lot of really nice people. But there was one of the guys who's sitting on the front row, right? And he didn't have two spaniels with him. I spoke to him during the lecture, and he was sitting there and he was looking like this, frowning at me for the whole time. And he was, a really big guy and he was older than me. And so I felt, oh my God, I hope I'm saying the right thing. And I was saying raw feeding really is, for most dogs, it is the best thing you could possibly do. And raw bone feeding as to exercise the jaw and keep them happy and fiber and everything else is really, really important. And so the lecture concluded and he went home and I thought no more about it. And I thought, oh well, I've lost another one there. He God bless him. He emailed me 2-3 months later and he said, oh hello, it's me. Yeah, I was sitting in the front row and I didn't believe a word you said when you were talking about raw food. But he said something in there struck with me. It kind of reminded me what my grandfather fed,
Mhm.
it just it was a shock when he first heard it. But then the more he thought about it, he thought, yeah, we're feeding dogs here. We're not feeding kind of Egon Rone. We're not, it's we're feeding dogs and they need to be fed as dogs. And so he tried it. So despite himself,
Wow,
maybe his wife ran
awesome.
on him or something, he tried the raw food diet and he was a big enough man to say to ring up and I've got the email somewhere. And he said, yep, I was sitting in the front and I didn't believe a word. And here we are 3 months, 4 months later, and my dogs have got the most beautiful teeth, the most beautiful poos, and the most beautiful coats. And I really want to thank you for helping me correct course
Wow.
to to find something that has given my dogs a new life, a new health that I didn't think was possible. Because he was one of these guys who does everything by the book. He was vaccinating whenever he got the little note from the vet. Okay, that's another
Mhm.
story. We'll go there
Yeah.
another time. Maybe you come on to my show and
Yeah.
we can talk about vaccines. Thank you. That'd be great. Um, uh, so he was vaccinating by the book. He was worming by the book. He was dosing
Mhm.
pesticides onto the dog
Mhm.
every month according to the manufacturer's instructions. Yeah, and I say pesticides. I always say pesticides, so it makes people think, "Oh my goodness, what am I doing?" Good. You need to think about these things. And he was a guy who used to do everything properly, and he fed the best kibble, and and so his dogs arguably were as good as dogs could get within the normal raising of dogs scenario. Yeah, he was doing everything by the book. And yet, when he went on to raw food, the health of those dogs improved to his eye within weeks, you know?
Well, yeah, and what amazes me is we can do all of those things to dogs, the vaccines and the pesticides and the drugs and the poor food, and yet they still survive that.
It's because I always say to my clients, they're like the Rolling Stones. They are they're built to survive. They evolve with changing times, changing pesticides, changing, if you hit them with drugs. I
Yeah.
mean, don't get me wrong, antibiotics,
Yeah.
if they're going to save your life, absolutely
Yes.
great. Go for it. And prednisone,
Yeah.
if it's
Listen,
absolutely necessary,
I've
I'm
got
a
a dog.
fan.
I've got a patient on it right now because it's gonna give that dog a few more months with their people,
I'm
and
all for it.
yeah,
I'm not
yeah,
I'm not against drugs if they're used carefully and appropriately and minimally. I think drugs are a great thing. If I walk out the front door here, which I'm not because I'm living in the country, so nothing I get 2 cars an hour. But if I walk through the if I walk through the door right now and I get run down by a bus, I want everything they've got,
yeah,
you know.
right.
Yeah.
He needs those pain meds, and he
I
needs a
want
surgeon, and yeah,
I want absolutely everything, but I want a great surgeon, but I don't want hospital food,
yeah,
and
right?
I want an osteopath, and I want a homeopath, and I want a herbalist,
Yes,
and a nutritionist. I think I
yep,
should
and
know
an
what to do,
acupuncturist.
but and an acupuncturist. I want the works, you know.
Yeah, yeah,
But I want to come off the drugs as soon as I'm able. I'm really bad.
yeah.
I'm a guy, so I'm really terrible with pain, and I'm a baby as well, so I'm really terrible with pain. And I really hate needles. Can you believe it? I'm a vet, and I hate needles coming to myself. I've used
Yeah.
about 1 billion acupuncture needles in my time. I'm not doing acupuncture these days, but I loved, doing the needling. And I've taken blood from 1 million dogs. But you show me a needle coming towards me and I'm on the floor. I will faint.
Oh,
I,
no.
I kid you not. I will faint. I'm such a baby. Anyway, back to bones.
Yeah.
Where were we? I can't remember.
Bones. So, I mean, the concerns here, like
Yeah.
people will say, breaking
Mm.
the carnassial tooth, giving them
Yeah.
bones that aren't, and also I think dogs that never get them and they get a bone, they're so voracious, like it's like they have stored up energy
Yeah.
that they have not been able to chew.
Yeah.
So there's some things like that. I think there's
Yeah.
smart ways to feed bones
Yeah.
and
Okay. That's a good introduction. So, I mean, we can go through from an age. Let's if how about you'll have to remind me because as soon as I get onto one topic, I forget all the
yeah.
others. So
Oh,
I'll just go through ages first of all, and then I've developed a system, and you can see it in my. I've done a course. It's on my website,
mhm.
holisticvet.co.uk. You can jump on and see that course. It's 10 short chapters. It's not overwhelming, I promise you. And what uh so age wise, the first question is when do you start a puppy on bony material? Okay, so that's the first question that people often ask me, and the answer is before they're born. Yeah, get mum
Mom.
eating bones. Okay, that's when you start a puppy on bones. Is you start with mum eating bones. Okay, because then she can teach Junior how to eat
How to
bones
keep
as they grow up. That's number one. And number two, she's going to have a whole lot more great nutrients in her system in order to pass through to the puppies. And so, and also they're going to have a better taste for it. They've done those trials with women where they they spray mint whenever the woman is eating, and then they
oh,
when they give the baby food, they prefer minty food. Have you seen
oh,
those
interesting.
studies?
No,
Yeah, they have.
I
Yeah.
that's
So your so what your mum is exposed to when she is pregnant will have an
mhm.
influence on your taste preferences later. So that's why feeding pregnant bitches is such a disaster because there may be some carryover to the baby. It's not as bad in dogs as it is in cats. But so feed mum bones. If you can't do that and you're getting it from a breeder, then then if the breeder is a raw feeding breeder, then she will likely be beginning to introduce chicken wings, turkey necks, and things at as early as 2 or 3 weeks. Yeah.
Huh.
So,
When they're
um,
starting to their first teeth are coming in and there's
before the teeth even come in, yeah.
yeah.
So what they're going to be doing is they're going to be falling into the bowl of meat that you put down for mum. Okay, and they're going to be getting it everywhere, but they will be getting a tiny bit. You know what they're like,
Yeah.
and they will be getting a tiny bit in. So they'll develop a little bit of a flavor for it,
Yeah.
and then you can put some chicken wings, turkey necks down for the puppies, and they won't be able to do any damage to those things whatsoever. But they will be able to mouth them, and they'll be enormous. They'll be like me eating my arm. They'll
Yeah.
be they'll
Yeah.
be really big things, and the puppy's going to go and they're going to get used to the texture and the flavor of those
Mhm.
chewy materials, and that's really early training. That's like
I
potty
hope the
training for a
the
child.
breeders out there are listening to this. That's the
Yeah.
breeders need. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's really
Yeah.
easy to do. You just like,
Yeah.
right, mum, you start. So where's yeah, that's another story. We'll talk about feeding bitches another time. So you feed mum, and you start with the babies at about 2-3 weeks. Okay, once their eyes are open, that's when you need to put bones in front of them, because if they don't finish, if they don't do any damage to those bones at all, mum will have them, and that's going to help with her calcium at the very
Calcium.
least
Yeah.
for for feeding the puppies. So it's a win-win situation, and that means that the puppies are going to be conditioned to eating bones and mouthing and using their mouths appropriately from a very, very, very young age, which I think is brilliant. Okay, really, really
That's
important.
the ideal. Now
It's
I see
it.
a lot of people I have a lot of
Mm,
people getting puppies 8
mm,
weeks, 9 weeks old. I've even had quite a few recently getting them older where they'll get that the last puppy in the litter that the breeder still has for whatever reason at like 4 months, and that's
yeah,
kind of at the end of that really important developmental
yeah,
period.
yeah.
So, like, introducing them then it's a little tougher, but it still can be done.
I think it's really, really important because there's that golden
Yeah,
period up until 16, 20 weeks
16 weeks, yeah.
when, yeah, it's like us learning languages. You teach a 4-year-old to speak Mandarin Chinese. It's dead easy. You teach a 44-year-old human to speak Mandarin, and you're going to be there forever. Yeah. So it's the
Yeah.
same with puppies. So there is that golden period. So as far as time is concerned, that's the best time. But most people
Mhm.
don't get their puppies until like 8 weeks, 12 weeks.
Yeah.
And so that's the next best time to start uh, teaching puppies to eat bones. And I've got a and actually it's the same process. I take it. I've got it's like a very simple program going from kindergarten to college. Okay, I'm going to take you through that now. And whether you are feeding a 3-week-old puppy or an 8 or 12-week-old puppy who's just arrived with you, yay! Or whether you're dealing with, this is a 6-year-old, 8-year-old dog. It's exactly the same process, okay? And so the process looks a little bit like this. And you think about the education system, okay? So with education, you start at kindergarten. Then in the UK, you go to primary school. Yeah, it's so I don't know what would you call that?
Elementary school.
Elementary school. Okay, so you go from kindy, you go to elementary school. That's primary school for us. You then go to secondary school,
Mhm.
which would be your grade school,
Like
I think.
middle school.
Middle school. Okay,
Middle
elementary then middle. Okay, okay. I think I'm understanding how you do it in the States. For us, it's primary. So kindy, primary, secondary, and then you go to college. Say, just
okay.
yeah. Let's call it.
We
Let's
have,
call
like,
it that.
elementary, middle school,
I
high
know, but that's
school, and
you. Yeah, let's keep it simple. Okay,
middle.
okay. So there's 4 stages. Okay, that's what I'm trying to get across. You got kindy, you got primary school, you got secondary school, and then you got college. Okay, this is very simple education.
Cool.
So, what does kindergarten school look like with bones, with dogs of any age? And the answer is it's the easy stuff. It's the elementary. It's no, we're not there. It's the kindergarten stuff. Okay. It's so we are talking the softest bony material that you can find. And that for me would usually be chicken carcasses, duck carcasses, maybe turkey carcasses. They're a bit bigger and maybe a little bit harder. But for me, chicken carcasses is a great idea. So
Mhm.
with the dog at any age, you'd start with chicken carcasses. Now, if you've got a dog who cannot tolerate chicken, then you're going to have to think about duck and turkey. That's why I give the options. Okay. And so that's where you start. That's kindergarten. And you would do that for 4 weeks, 8 weeks, or 12 weeks until your dog has stopped being like it's the first time they've ever seen it in their life and the last time they're ever going to see it in their life. They're just eating them. They know that they're going to come every day. They're enjoying them. They address them sensibly. They're not trying to eat the whole thing in one go. And then,
Yeah.
and then then they have developed a relationship with the kindergarten bones. Okay, and then surprise, surprise, you move to primary school. Okay, which is elementary school over there. And elementary school is one step up.
Yeah.
So that would be maybe chicken legs, chicken thighs. It would be turkey necks, duck necks, whichever necks you can
Mhm.
get hold of. Something that's just a little bit bigger, maybe a little bit bonier than the kindergarten stuff. Yeah. Okay. So that'd be primary school. Okay. It's quite easy to use. There's no sharp bits and what have you. If you're looking at the third school, yeah, this would be for us, would be secondary school. You're looking at real bones. So here we're talking about ribs, we're talking about brisket, we may be talking about vertebrae. I always point to bits of the body when I'm talking about them. Okay, we're
Mhm.
not talking
Yeah.
about reproduction today, Josie. You're lucky. Okay, another day, another day. Okay, so we're talking about any any bones really that are not leg bones, because leg bones are really tough because they keep the cow or the sheep or the goat, they keep them off the ground and they have to move around. Okay, so they're particularly special, particularly brittle. So we leave those until college stage, the fourth stage. Okay, so for the third stage, that will be so ribs, vertebrae, neck, anything that's not a leg. Okay,
Mhm.
good to go from any species that your dog is good with. So if your dog is not good with beef, then you won't use beef rib. If your dog's not so good with lamb, you won't use lamb ribs or lamb feet or lamb anything. Yeah,
Mhm.
pigs trotters are really pretty good, and I would put those
Yeah.
in the third stage. They're really cheap as well, and they're great.
I just
They're
had a
really,
friend
really
of
good.
mine got I don't she had hundreds of pig trotters from this
Yeah.
farm near her.
Yeah,
And
they're really unfashionable, but
yeah, my
in
dogs
Britain,
love them.
and even maybe 70, 80, 100 years ago, pig trotters were a delicacy.
Oh, wow.
Apparently, they're really, really, really good eating. My wife is
Mhm.
half Indonesian, and her mum lives with us just here, and they will have pig trotters, and they will sit and they will munch on the meat and the bone,
Oh,
and yeah,
wow.
yeah,
Wow.
humans, yeah, yeah, yeah. Anyway, so pig trotters, that's the third category, along with anything that's not legs. Okay. But then you move into the veteran territory. This is college territory. This is the fourth. You've done kinder, you've done primary school, secondary school, and now you're at college. This is big boys and girls. Okay. And this will be for the veteran raw feeder. You've done the previous stages for a month or 2 or 3 each, and you've graduated up. And now you're about a year, maybe 2 years into bone eating, and your dog is an absolute pro. They really, really know what they're doing. And so you say, great, you're going to graduate onto the more difficult stuff. You're going to graduate onto the brittle stuff, which is filled with marrow, which can sometimes give you diarrhea. And you're going to know not to try and swallow the entire leg in one go. You're going to know that you can break your teeth on the bone, and so you're going to have to just gnaw it very carefully to
Oh,
pulverize it, so you can swallow uh, the powdery material, and you're going to address it respectfully. And if you know that if it takes you 3-4 days to get through that big femur, well, you just got to take your time, and
Yeah.
you're going to be delighted because you're going to have 3-4 days of chewy, chewy, chewy. So, um, that's a very brief run through that I go through on the course,
Yeah,
and
no, that's great because that gives people an idea because a lot of people
yeah,
go, it's hard to find bones in the cities over here. It's hard to find a good butcher where you can get some of those bones.
yeah,
There
yeah.
are sources though, like Raw Feeding Miami is here, and she gets all kinds of body parts, from bones to vertebrae to eyeballs to like
Oh, amazing.
she gathers
Yeah,
them all over the place. But you kind of have
yeah.
to look at those specialty because if you just go into the grocery store, they've got the leg bones sliced into
Mm,
these round marrow bones, and those
yeah.
are the ones when they're not used to chewing bones, they're going to crack their teeth on them.
These bones, these are the leg bones, which are really
Yeah,
brittle. Okay,
yeah,
they're specialized bones, and they're really, really strong. Yeah, that's why we don't break legs every day when we go running and things like this.
yeah,
And well, one of the problems with sawn bones, with because big bones are often sawn, and
yeah.
when you've got a like a classic Tom and Jerry bone, yeah, if you saw that in half, you then get a right angle, which is completely unknown. I was thinking about. I was walking the
Yeah.
dogs this morning. I was thinking I was going to be talking to Josie. What am I going to say? So it's there are no right angles
No,
like this
in
in
nature.
nature. Yeah.
Yeah.
No right angles. I'll get a bit of light. So, yeah. So, no right angles in nature. And yet, human beings create them like this. And the thing, what, what happens, okay, what happens is that right angle on the bone
Yeah.
that you're feeding will go, they'll jam it out there to get good leverage on the bone.
Oh,
And
in
go,
between the teeth.
oh. And
Exactly.
so
Yeah.
the pound per square inch on the tooth is astronomically high because they've got pretty
Yeah.
strong, and that's why the carnassials, the premolars,
They get
they are the
that
ones
back.
that go.
Yep.
Okay, so
Because I
if you can
did those.
avoid them, that's if you can avoid those cut ends,
Yeah.
that's great. But it's generally impossible. So what the
Yeah.
thing to do is spend plenty of time in kindergarten, plenty of time in primary school, plenty of time in secondary school, and if you need to if you need to stay in secondary school and not go into the big tough bones of college level, the fourth level, then that's okay. You know,
Yeah.
you're in secondary school for life. Hey, life's a party. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah. Because I have 2. Well, the golden doodle I have is like he's a he's a master bone chewer. And then I
Yeah.
had a husky German Shepherd, and I started her at bones. Well,
Mm,
she was already 3 years old when I got her, but she would
mm,
sit and just she loved taking apart bones, and it's
mm.
almost like those trotters where she'd take a little of all the parts apart and chew out
Yeah,
the gristle. So I got a goat trotter for each one of them, and I said
yeah.
I was gonna be online for a couple hours, and I said, "Oh, this will keep them busy." I came out there and those dogs, they had powdered they started at one end and just
Mm,
shaved that bone down,
yeah,
and they were gone in, like, 40 minutes, Nick. I went out
yeah,
there and I couldn't find them. I was like, "Holy smokes." But they
yeah,
just
yeah,
shaved them off little by little
yeah,
by
totally. Elizabeth Severino is joining us. Elizabeth, you're very, very
Oh,
welcome.
hi.
She says about chicken feet. What about chicken feet? And chicken feet are absolutely fantastic. Get the real thing from your butcher or wherever. Yeah, they've got to be good. Good. Yeah, not battery chicken, but
Yeah.
if that's all you can get, I think it pays to respect that even that battery chicken. So chicken feet are amazing. Again, Indonesians go crazy about chicken feet. Yeah, Indonesian people
Oh, they chew on them.
they choose them. Yeah,
Wow.
I can think of nothing worse, but they're really good for you. And so
But they're
Elizabeth,
like nature's toothbrush, though,
they
like
they totally are. They're like floss. So Elizabeth, that's a really good point.
yeah.
And I would put chicken feet, and I must remember that for when I talk about this again. Chicken feet for me would be pretty much in kindergarten or primary school. They'd be stage one, stage two for me. Okay, so that's there. And she also says, what about dogs for small bones for small dogs? The answer is bones. Small dogs are quite easy to feed bones because most bones are big
Big.
for them, and therefore they can't swallow them. Okay. So when you're first starting with a dog with bones, I think the bigger, the better, because there's a lot of dogs. They'll go, "Oh, look at that bone. Oh, I'm going to try and swallow it like sideways," you know?
Yes.
Okay, because
Yep.
they're not used to it. Yeah, because they haven't done kindergarten and primary and da da da. So I think the bigger, the better. Obviously, if you give an elephant, yeah, the screen is not big enough for me to go. If you give an elephant an elephant bone to a they're just not going to be able to get their mouth around to a Yorkie. Say they're not going to be able to get their mouth around it. Yeah, like this. Oh, you can't get your mouth around it. Okay, so within reason, something big, and if you can't get it like particularly big that way, then you get it quite long that way, so that they last a long time. And so what dogs will do is, here's a pen. So you start it. So remember, if you think this is a bone, you'd start at that and you go chomp, chomp, chomp,
Yep.
chomp, 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 and you try not to feed. It's like swallow it sideways, because that's not a great idea. But dogs will. Stappies, especially if you have two stappies in the same room competing together, they will try and swallow
When
chicken
you
wings.
said that, that's the dog that popped up in my head is a
Hello,
Staffordshire.
I'm a really intelligent golden retriever or Staffordshire Bull Terrier because I try to eat a bone sideways. They do it, okay? Which is why the education, which is why everybody needs to go to kindergarten and progress from there. Whether you are 3 weeks old or whether you're 13 years old, you start at kindergarten. It is as simple as that. Yeah, it's like one size fits all. That's how you do bones. You start at kindergarten, you move on in your own time. Plenty of time kindy, plenty of time primary, plenty of time secondary, and maybe you'll get to college. If you don't get to college, doesn't matter. You're in a good place nonetheless.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, that's great. I love it. I love it. It simplifies things.
It simplifies things, and I think
Yeah.
it's really important because I think modern medicine is very good at making things really complicated.
Exactly.
And it's
Or
not.
it's like black and white,
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah. It's
all
not.
no bones at all, and
Yeah,
things are
yeah.
not black and white. Yeah.
One of the provisos is never, ever, 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 ever feed cooked bones.
Yes.
Okay,
Cooked bone. Yes.
I almost don't need to say it, but I'll just say it for the record.
You
Okay,
need to say
never
it.
feed cooked bones. Okay, raw, 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 and pretty much
You know,
anything that comes off a carcass you can feed. Okay,
I got down here to Miami, and there's
yeah,
there's a big Latin American population here from South Americans but
brilliant,
and the Caribbean
brilliant.
and
Ah,
Mexico and
yeah,
Cuba, and they will roast whole pigs. They
yeah,
build barbecues in their
yep,
backyard, and they'll do these big
fabulous.
pig roasts.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
It's amazing how many
yeah,
people will feed those cooked
yeah,
bones straight to the dogs.
yeah,
And I'll tell them, coming in as a veterinarian, I'm like, "You shouldn't be feeding cooked bones." They're like, "Our dogs have been eating cooked bones our whole life." And I was like,
yeah,
"You've gotten really, really, really lucky." But
yeah,
so I
yeah,
still don't yeah, the way they munch on them, and then you get those sharp angles, and
yeah,
you can
yeah,
do some
yeah.
damage
I
to
think,
their
yeah. Do what suits your dog, but start at kindergarten. Just yeah, at the beginning,
Yeah,
and don't feed,
exactly. And
cooked.
that may be
Don't
the
feed
thing
cooked.
too,
Yeah,
is those dogs are growing up with that. But I also had a lot of,
yeah,
South American clients would
yeah,
come up, and they'd been living, like, out on like, in Argentina on cattle ranches and stuff, and they were feeding their dogs the scraps. Or you have the big pot on the stove and everything goes in there, and mom takes the big pot of gruel and scraps out and gives it to the dogs every day.
yeah,
And they got here and they didn't know what dry dog food was. And I was
yeah,
like, Just don't worry about it.
yeah.
Just keep
That's
feeding what you were feeding on the ranch,
your dog is smarter than 99% of American dogs, and British
Yeah.
dogs come to at the same time because they will eat it. Yeah, there are some dogs who refuse to eat kibble, and I take my hat off to those dogs.
Right.
Uh, Ra-
Yeah.
Randy, Randy Rutledge says, "What about
Ugh.
dehydrated chicken, duck, and duck feet?" And I think they're okay. I think they are okay. Um, just to start with, Randy, I think the thing to do is hang on to them so that the dog can get used to chewing through because they're dehydrated. They're a little bit tougher than the real deal. And I would
Mhm.
I would be inclined to start, if you want a simple single place to start, a chicken carcass. Now, a chicken carcass is where, they get a
The
chicken,
fat.
yeah, from the farm. It's been plucked, and if you take off the breast like this, and you take off the wings and the legs, what you've got left is called a chicken carcass. Okay, and butchers pay to get rid of those because they're all cartilage and there's not much meat on
Uh-huh.
them. So the butchers have to so if you find a butcher, used to be able to get rid of, they used to be able to buy them for 50 cents a piece over here, and you'd
Wow.
buy them by the box of 50. Okay.
Uh-huh.
They were trying to get rid of them. Okay. So Randy, I think dehydrated is good. Just take it easy and hang on to the thing to start with. Debbie says, what are trotters? They're the things you trot around on, Debbie. We
I'm
call
not
them
seeing the for whatever
pigs.
reason, I'm not seeing the chat on my end.
Oh, right. No, it's great.
Yeah,
They're
yeah.
saying all sorts of things about you.
Oh,
Oh,
I'm sure. I'm sure.
no. No, it's all good.
Sure.
They're not actually saying it all, but they're asking me lots of nice questions. So
Well,
pigs trotters are, I don't know, it must be an English colloquial thing. It's basically their feet. Yeah,
the
it's from about
feet.
there. Yeah. So it's
And they
these things
have
that pigs run around on.
there are dog food companies here that
Yeah.
sell them frozen and are selling the
Oh,
frozen and selling the
wow.
frozen chicken feet. So Solutions
Okay.
has some, and then
Solutions pet
OC
food. Okay.
Solutions Pet Food. They come from regenerative farms. They're
Oh,
really good.
wow.
They're like my
Great.
number one pet food. And then there's
Solutions. Okay,
OC
that's good.
Raw is
Yeah.
selling some good ones, but
Yeah.
I had, like, the chicken carcasses. I'm glad you defined that term because
Uh-huh.
I have a client who she had Goldens all the time, and part of her feeding routine was to take a chicken carcass, the
Uh-huh.
back,
Yeah.
and just take them out on the back porch and throw them down on a towel and let them eat
Yeah.
that at their afternoon snack.
Yeah, no, I think that's really good. So,
Yeah.
a question for us both here, Josie. Collapse Life, which is an interesting title, has said, it's a good question. I have a question. I have a senior greyhound who is missing several or most of his teeth. How should we give him bones? And I'll go first with that one, Josie, if that's okay,
Yeah, yeah,
as
go
it's
for it.
your show, and I'm going to muscle in.
Go
Okay,
for it.
collapse. I really appreciate that question. So the first thing I would do with these guys, and I would do with pretty much any dog, is get yourself some really, really good bone broth. Now, there's two ways of getting bone broth. One is you can buy it, and you just look online for regeneratively sourced meat and bone that's been.
Solutions Pet Products has
Oh,
some really great bone broth.
Solutions pet products, Josie swears by them. They're very good. Okay, so that's a good place to go. So Solutions bone broth, because then you get all the bony material, but
Mhm.
dog who has no teeth doesn't have to chew and not get anywhere. Okay, so that's the first thing. To get the goodness, then bone broth is good. And I would say anybody, if you've got a 3-week-old pup, or if you've got a 30-year-old dog, bone broth is your friend. If they're sick and recovering, if they've
Yeah,
got arthritis, if they're pregnant, you name it, bone broth is the answer. Okay, so collapse. That's a really good point. Thank you for bringing that up. So
yeah.
the other thing is, depending on how many teeth you've got, sometimes they'll be able to. If you've got to give big things collapse because you don't want them swallowing it. Okay, because they can't dissect the they can't dissect the carcass as they would, the bone as they would otherwise. Okay, so they're either going to look at it and go, I can't even do any damage on that at all, which is going to be kind of frustrating for them, or it's got to be soft enough for what few teeth they've got to be able to get their way through. They'll be really slow, but they'll be fine. They'll be really, really happy while they do that. And I would say that is the way to go. Okay,
And if you
so
want, I've
mm,
have had people that have I've had people actually buying their own grinders or found, the same person feeding the chicken backs
yeah,
found a butcher who would grind up bones
yeah,
and chicken necks for her so that they get
yeah.
nutrition out of it, you
So you
know?
get, yeah, I mean, bones are great because for many, many reasons, but because they clean your teeth, they give you fiber and give you nutrition. So if you grind them up, or I imagine Solutions will do
They
ground
grind
carcass
them in.
within their minces, within their grinds. Okay, so
Yeah.
that's kind of so normally in a good raw mince, you will have ground bony material within there. So if collapse, you're feeding a good raw diet, it's likely that there is bony material there. So that's the kind of nutrition side taken care of. And if you haven't got any teeth, you haven't got any teeth to look after. So you don't need bones um, to keep your teeth
Like,
clean. But what you do need is you need bones as entertainment, so-called recreational bones. Yeah. And so with those recreational, so just anything you like, dinosaur bones, elephant bones, big, not too small. Okay. Because if they're just small enough, then dog could swallow and get something stuck. Yeah. So if they're really small, then dog will be able to swallow and be able to get that down them to make up for the fact that that's what they would do if they had teeth. Yeah. So either really big or really small, just be careful of kind of in-betweeny sized material, I would suggest. Good
and dogs
question,
get
perhaps.
yeah, and dogs get a lot of pleasure. I think even an older
Yeah.
dog, if just gnawing on the bone, just chewing on that bone, it's releases all kinds of good brain
Oh
chemicals.
yeah, it very much does. Yeah, collapse is saying something big might be a rib bone. A beef rib bone is about that wide, maybe that wide. Can you see that? Yeah, it's about that wide and can be. Oh, it's a really narrow screen. Can you see that? Okay,
Yeah,
it's like
yeah.
it can be I don't know 2 feet long. Okay, so that's pretty big, and I would go with that. I would say ribs are pretty much your friend because ribs they are they're slightly tough,
Softer.
but they've got a slightly kind of crunchy. You know, over here we have Cadbury's crunchy bars. You know, with the with
Yeah.
the with the honeycomb texture inside.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're
They got
amazing. I love them. They're brilliant.
good.
Yeah, they are absolutely amazing. The ribs are a little bit like that. They're like a soft, foamy
Yeah.
dog Cadbury's crunchy bar. That's kind of what they
There we
they
go.
are a bit. And if your dog enjoys those, make sure that you say that Dr. Josie and Dr. Nick were instrumental in getting the dog that. Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Okay. She's called Zara. Collapse Life is my Substack. Zara, you're so
Oh,
welcome.
thank
Please
you.
subscribe to us both and do anything you can to promote the message. It's really important.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
Great. So there any other questions or
I can't see. Zara says, love it. Love crunch. She says, I love crunchies as well. Zara, they're really, really bad for you. But you know what? Every now and again, you need something that's bad for you, and for your
Yeah.
dogs as well. Every now and again, give them something that's bad for them. Okay, you can quote me on that. Okay, I love. What do I? I don't drink any. I don't drink alcohol anymore, and I don't smoke cigarettes. I do. I tell you what. There you go. I smoke a vape.
Uh,
So there you go. That's my little. That's my
that
little.
yeah.
Every now and again,
Vice.
I have something.
Yeah.
What's your
Ev
vice, Josie?
Life is too short. What is
I
my
agree.
vice? Every now and
Yeah.
then I'll have a really good margarita.
Oh, amazing. Yeah. That's great. I love chocolate.
And
Yeah. Oh
chocolate.
my
I have to
God.
have my chocolate, yeah.
Okay. Zara says Greyhound love marshmallows. Okay, Zara,
Uh,
I'm going to allow you one marshmallow for the dog per month. Okay. That's
there
it.
we go.
Okay. Even mine don't get marshmallows. Okay. Just take it easy with the marshmallows. Spend your money on the good stuff, on the chicken carcasses and all that stuff. Okay. That's where you want to go. Zara, I really appreciate you joining us today. That was really, really, really good. Wow, that has been a
So
very
I
quick hour, Josie.
yeah,
That really was
it
a
has.
quick.
No, it's been lots of fun,
Mm.
definitely. And that's feeding dogs and hanging out with our animals should be fun and
It should
enjoyable.
be fun. I tell you what, I always say to my clients, if if you're feeding your dog raw food and it's not fun, you're doing it wrong.
Right.
You
Right.
know, it is fun. It is sometimes it's a
I think
chore, but
yeah.
it's overall it's fun. It feels good. Dog loves it, and you get a really warm glow.
Exactly. And
You
people
every
are
time you feed. Yeah,
they're so worried over their dog's health, and I get so many people that are so worried and upset, and they should be bringing dogs want us to enjoy life, you
They
know?
do.
They You need to go
They want to.
outside, spend time
Yeah,
with them.
yeah, yeah. It's life is really simple. Switch off the TV. Switch off
Yeah.
Substack. Go outside. Go in the sunshine with your dog.
Yeah.
Sit under a tree and gather that near infrared with your dog so you don't get burnt.
Sunshine
Uh,
is it's the supplement that we've all forgotten about that we all need. It's a
th
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, totally. Sunshine, near infrared, under a
Yep.
tree, it's really, really good. Grab yourself a really good book. Yeah,
Oh,
remember one of those old-fashioned things called a
yes.
paperback book? And for the dog, get a really beautiful, appropriate bone,
Phone.
and just treat yourself to an hour. Just switch off the phone, switch off everything. In fact, don't
Awesome.
even get a paperback book. Just sit there, watch the dog. There you
Watch
go.
the
And
dog, talk to
watch
the
the dog.
tree, lean your back up against the tree, and say hello to the world.
It's really simple
Yes,
if you let it. It's really simple.
yes. Well, thank you so much for joining me. We'll do more. This is really
Josie,
fun.
I've had such
Great.
a good time. Thank you
Yeah,
so much. It's been great.
yeah.
Please come on to mine as soon as I get
Yeah, I
myself
will.
organized. We'll
Yeah,
we'll we'll have another little chat of on the topic of your choice,
yeah. For
and
vaccines, we can tackle
we
vaccines.
can do
It's kind
vaccines.
of a
Yeah,
simple answer to vaccines, but
yeah.
you
And
know.
it's not very controversial, so we'll be fine.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I love controversy. All right. Thank you so much, Nick.
Josie,
Good
so
to
good to
see you.
see you. Take care. Keep up the
Take
good
care.
work. Yeah.
Yeah, you
All the
too.
best.
Everybody have a
See you
wonderful
soon.
weekend.
Take care. Thank you. Bye bye. Bye bye.